I've been driving trucks for almost 15 years now, and I've seen my fair share of strange things on the road. But what happened to me about 6 months ago still sends shivers down my spine every time I think about it. I slammed on my brakes, the tires screeching in the dead of night, but when my truck came to a halt, there was no one there. I sat there, my heart pounding in my chest, scanning the area with my headlights. The road was empty. No man. No movement. Just the sound of the wind and my own heavy breathing. I didn't wait to find out what was going on. I pressed the pedal to the floor and didn't stop until I reached the next truck stop, where the lights of civilization could finally pull me out of whatever I'd just experienced. To this day, I still don't know what I saw out there. Some nights, when I'm back on those dark, empty roads, I find myself checking my mirrors a little more than usual. Because somewhere deep down, I know he's still out there, waiting. And one night, he might step out of the shadows again. It was late, around 2 a.m., and I was hauling a load through the back roads of Wyoming. I prefer these routes, they're quieter, with less traffic and better scenery. But that night, the isolation felt different. The night seemed darker, the air heavier, like something was waiting just beyond the reach of my headlights. I was about an hour away from my stop, on a long stretch of road with no towns, no lights, nothing but wilderness for miles. That's when I noticed it. A lone figure, standing by the side of the road. At first, I thought it was a deer or maybe some hitchhiker, but as I got closer, it became clear it was a man. He wasn't moving. Just standing there, staring at my truck as it approached. Something about him gave me the creeps. His clothes looked old, ragged, like he'd been wandering for days. His face was pale, unnaturally pale, and he stood completely still, almost too still, as if he was waiting for something. I don't stop for people, especially not in the middle of nowhere at night, so I kept driving, telling myself it was nothing. But about 20 minutes later, I saw him again. Same spot, same road, same pale face staring me down. My stomach dropped. It wasn't possible. I'd been driving straight the whole time, never turned off, never slowed down. Yet here he was, standing exactly where I had seen him before. I gripped the wheel tighter and kept going, trying to shake off the growing unease gnawing at me. I didn't want to believe it was anything more than a trick of my tired mind. But then, after another 10 miles, I saw him again. This time, he wasn't just standing. He was walking. Slowly, purposefully, right towards the middle of the road. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more terrifying horror stories. It started like any other late-night haul. I had a route running from Oregon down to Nevada, hauling a load of construction materials, driving through long stretches of isolated highways. I'd been a trucker for years, and if there's one thing I know, it's how lonely these roads can get at night. It's just you, the road, and the occasional flicker of headlights from another rig coming the opposite way. This night was colder than usual. I had been on the road for about 8 hours straight, and the caffeine from my last pit stop was wearing off. I could feel my eyes getting heavy, so I decided to pull over at the next stop for a quick bite and some coffee. That's when I saw the sign, Miller's Diner, 24 hours, truckers welcome. I'd never heard of Miller's Diner before, and I'd run this route plenty of times. But in this line of work, places like that pop up and disappear all the time. A warm meal sounded good, so I followed the exit sign and rolled into the parking lot. There were only a couple of other trucks parked out front, and the place had an old-school neon sign that buzzed and flickered in the dark. It seemed quiet, almost too quiet. I stepped inside, and the first thing that hit me was the smell, greasy food mixed with the scent of stale cigarettes. The place was practically empty except for a lone waitress behind the counter. She had that look, tired, worn down by life, barely acknowledging my presence. There was a guy sitting in one of the back booths, hunched over his coffee, staring down at the table like it held the answers to the universe. I took a seat near the front window, just wanting to keep to myself. The waitress shuffled over, no smile, no how's it going, just a blank stare. I ordered a coffee and a burger, trying not to make small talk, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She walked back to the kitchen, and I noticed something strange. The guy in the back hadn't moved at all since I came in. Not a sip of his coffee, not even a twitch. The place felt stuck, like time was barely moving. The hum of the lights overhead droned on, and I began to feel an odd sense of unease. When the waitress came back with my coffee, I asked her if she got many truckers through here. She just shrugged, barely meeting my eyes, and said, "Not many." I took a sip of the coffee. It was cold. I glanced toward the guy in the booth, and this time, I noticed something else. His hands were dirty, almost black, like he'd been digging through the earth. And then, I realized, his coffee hadn't cooled down like mine. It was completely untouched, the steam still rising from the cup. I told myself I was just tired, but the longer I sat there, the heavier the air felt, like the diner was pressing down on me. I couldn't take it anymore. I flagged the waitress down and asked for the check, but she ignored me. She just stared blankly past me, her eyes glazed over like she wasn't even there anymore. That's when the door creaked open. Another trucker walked in. He was tall, gaunt, wearing a heavy jacket with patches from different states. He glanced around, and when his eyes met mine, I saw a flicker of something, recognition, maybe fear. Without a word, he turned on his heel and left, just as quickly as he came in. I had this instinct to follow him. Something told me I needed to get out of there, and fast. So, I left some money on the table and headed out. As I walked to my rig, the cold air hit me like a wall. I climbed into the cab and fired up the engine, ready to leave that place behind. As I pulled out onto the highway, I glanced in my rearview mirror. The diner was gone. No lights, no sign, nothing. Just darkness where it had been. My heart started racing, and I floored it, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I didn't stop driving until the sun came up. I've been on that route dozens of times since, and I've never seen Miller's Diner again. Asked around, to other truckers, locals, anyone who might have known about it. No one's ever heard of it. But I'll never forget the way that coffee shop felt, the stillness, the cold. Sometimes, when I'm out on those long stretches of road late at night, I think about that place and wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed longer, if I hadn't left when I did. Some roads take you where you need to go. Others take you places you were never meant to find. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more terrifying horror stories. Animals darting out in front of me, cars flipping over out of nowhere, even the occasional hitchhiker with a strange look in their eyes. But there's one experience that still keeps me up at night, something that shook me to my core. It happened about 5 years ago, somewhere in the deep stretches of Wyoming. I had a load to deliver from Salt Lake City to Billings, Montana, a pretty straightforward route. The drive usually takes about 9 or 10 hours, depending on traffic and weather. I was doing it solo, which was nothing new to me. I actually prefer driving alone. You get into this zone, you know? Just you, the hum of the engine, the endless road ahead. There's something peaceful about it. But that night, it was different. I left Salt Lake City around 6 p.m., aiming to make good time and maybe even catch a few hours of sleep before the drop-off. The first few hours went smoothly. I was cruising along I-15 with hardly a soul on the road. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in a deep orange before the darkness swallowed it whole. The kind of darkness that only exists in the middle of nowhere, where the headlights are the only thing cutting through the pitch black. Around midnight, I hit a stretch of highway that runs through a desolate part of Wyoming, just miles and miles of nothing. No towns, no rest stops, no gas stations. Just me and the asphalt. That's when things started to get strange. I noticed a flickering light up ahead. At first, I thought it was just a reflection or maybe another trucker with faulty headlights. But as I got closer, I realized it was an old, beat-up pickup truck on the side of the road. Its hazard lights were blinking erratically, like they were about to give out. There was a man standing next to the truck, waving his arms in the air, clearly trying to flag me down. Now, I'm not one to ignore someone in trouble, but something about this felt off. The guy was wearing a dirty flannel shirt and jeans, covered in dust. His face was mostly hidden in the shadow of his baseball cap, but I could make out enough to see that he looked worn out, almost desperate. His truck looked like it had been there for a while, judging by the amount of dust and grime on it. I slowed down and pulled over a few feet ahead of him, keeping my engine running. I cracked my window just a bit, enough to hear him but not enough for him to reach in. "Hey, buddy," I called out. "You need some help?"
Yeah.
The man shuffled closer, but he didn't come right up to the window. He stopped a few feet away, his hands still in the air like he was surrendering. He said, his voice shaky,
Truck broke down. Been stuck here for hours. No cell signal.
I felt a pang of sympathy but also a twinge of suspicion. "Where you headed?" I asked.
North. Just like you, I reckon.
He replied. There was something about the way he said it that sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't what he said, but how he said it, like he already knew where I was going. "Sorry, man," I said. "I don't have room in the cab. I can call for help once I get a signal." For a moment, he just stood there, staring at me. Then, slowly, he nodded and stepped back. I started to ease off the brake, ready to pull away, but then he said something that made my blood run cold.
I'll see you up the road.
I didn't have time to process what he meant. I just hit the gas and took off, my heart pounding. As I drove away, I kept glancing in my mirrors, half expecting to see him running after me, but he just stood there, watching me leave. I tried to shake it off, telling myself he was just some unlucky guy stuck in the middle of nowhere. But then, about 20 minutes later, I saw something that made me nearly slam on the brakes. Up ahead, on the side of the road, was the same pickup truck. The same rusty, beat-up truck with the same flickering hazards. And standing next to it was the same man, waving his arms just like before. My mind was racing. How the hell did he get ahead of me? There was no way he could have passed me without me seeing him. I checked my mirrors and the road behind me, nothing. The stretch of highway I was on had no exits, no turn-offs, no way he could have gotten around me. I slowed down again, more out of shock than anything, but I didn't stop this time. As I drove past, I kept my eyes on him. He was just standing there, his hands down at his sides now, his face still obscured by his hat. But I swear, as I drove by, I saw his mouth curl into a grin. I floored it, my heart hammering in my chest. I didn't know what to think, what to do. I just kept driving, faster and faster, trying to put as much distance between me and that man as I could. After another 30 minutes or so, I started to feel a bit calmer, convincing myself that maybe I'd just been seeing things, that my mind was playing tricks on me in the dark. But that's when I saw it again. The flickering lights, the old truck, and that same man. He was standing in the middle of the road this time, right in my path. I had to swerve to avoid hitting him. My truck skidded for a moment before I regained control. I glanced in the rearview mirror, and he was gone, just like that. I didn't stop. I couldn't. I kept driving for hours until I finally reached a small town, pulled into a gas station, and practically jumped out of the cab. I was shaking, covered in sweat, even though the night air was cold. I went inside, got myself a coffee, and asked the cashier if anyone else had come through that night. She looked at me like I was crazy.
"You're the first I've seen in hours,"
she said. I tried to explain about the man, the truck, but she just shook her head.
"There's no one out there, honey. Not for miles."
I called the state troopers to report what I'd seen, but they didn't find anything. No broken down truck, no man on the road. They told me it was probably just fatigue, maybe even a mild hallucination from the long drive. Maybe they're right, but I know what I saw. And every time I drive that stretch of road, I can't help but check my mirrors, expecting to see those flickering lights behind me. And sometimes, late at night, I swear, I still do.